Over to Alan.
I suppose one of the things that, just from my perspective, coming from from a psychological background, but also working with the Paralympics, I'm trying to take this slightly out of context because I would see them quite naturally in that sphere in terms of competitive sport and also in terms of behaviours. But what I found incredibly good was today was the amount of times that people just got outside, and that was really one of the biggest things, and that possibly goes to a different audience, and that is the physical education group who are stuck behind 4 stone walls normally, maybe on a pitch, but it has boundaries around it, and they don't actually see the value of nature and the environment. They only see rules and instructing, I think you said over there. And to me, that they've got closed minds, and they need to be a little bit more different from that. In terms of trying to sum up, it's only a couple of slides, so I won't keep you too long, but the words that I could see just from all of today was that the appropriate challenge given to the learner or to the individual. And there's lots of mixed abilities done in some of the activities we did today, and that came out. Provided you can set that, and I know in my group we talked about there needs to be a balance. And that's fine, but you'll work that out, but you'll probably work that by asking the person as opposed to setting it yourself. Again, there was lots of adaptations going on, and that's fantastic, because the more we use that for the purpose of inclusion, the easier it becomes. And I know these are types of buzzwords, but when you're in an environment and you work in it for a long time, you tend to get quite stale. What we do, we've done it that way, it sort of works, it's be okay. Rather than say, listen, well, maybe I should just go in a different sector and have a look at what. And that actually helps create new ideas and transforms a little bit. And that's really, now for me, that came across today by the group I was with and the ideas that they literally had within the things we did. I suppose the other things in terms of that was getting the participants as well as yourselves to get totally engaged. And I suppose that's a credit to Dave and Tomas and everybody working in this program, is that the students who took us did that. They actually got us engaged. They got us involved. You know, they got us to do it without having to think, oh, let's get on with it. And that may be, unfortunately, easy for them because we tend to be active ourselves, and therefore the market probably that we could be aiming for is maybe we should be looking at physical education teachers and students and going, and then I would say probably, and Lauren, you said, the community. Mostly sports development officers and places around like that and around Ireland, because they don't see that. They see that we'll pass it to the governing bodies and we'll just let them deal with it, rather than say, listen, Kerry is a fantastic place for the environment. And having lived in it for 17 years, I actually don't recognise it that much, because you see it every day. and we lose sight of where, the mountains, the rivers, Banner Beach, although I do say that every day. The other thing for me was, it came up from Lauren's lecture, was the supporting environment we give. We need to be, I suppose, relatively careful because of the balance, but allow them to be a little more dependent on what they do. And the simple things, and it is as simple as asking the right question. Do you need a hand? No, grand, that's fine. So, and that's all. And that's not. I think I can't remember who it was in the chair in the last group in the Astro, and he basically said when they were playing Jenga, the comments were, "Oh, well done, that was great," and you suddenly thought he felt as if he was back like totally getting patronised, and that does come across, and I suppose I know that from the Paralympic environment. It is about their people first, and whatever else after that, we treat them as people, and then if they do need a hand, but we would do that normally anyway. So I don't see the disability as even being a hazard. It was interesting you talked about storytelling today. On the second task I think we went to, Dan suggested that he had no perception because he was totally blind. He had no perception of the course we went round. He thought it was literally about half the size of this room. And one of the things is when you signpost, and this probably is physical education, if you signpost and tell them what's going to happen, what's going to do, people can readjust, reset, and redefine what they have to do, and therefore their expectation they can set themselves. but they know what's coming. And that's a lot easier than saying, hold a minute, you're taking me into the woods. I'm blind. And really that is, for somebody who has that impairment, that is a concern. Because there's a lot of trust going on, which is great, but they need to know that, oh, what are we doing? We're going okay, I'm going on a rope, grand, I'm following this here, okay, I go beat, right, grand, okay, I can get that. At least I know how long it will take. I need that information first, so it is maybe one of our ideas that maybe it's good for facilitating as opposed to instructing. Loads of opportunities, accessibility. The biggest thing I got from today was basically trying to, was the values that we actually impart by doing adventure and outdoor activities. Moral values, emotional values, social values. The way we treat each other. Totally different, and it always has been in terms of the outdoor environment as opposed to some of the sports. But that essence itself is actually so fulfilling. It's one of those things that, and I'll say it later on, that has so much potential. What went on today, what I heard an awful lot this morning was about learning. We talked about a little bit about skill acquisition, we talked a little bit about retention, transfer and things like that there, and part whole and things like that, all part of what I would call learning. And that really is part of the job as well. You want them to get better, but you want to also to experience them getting better as well. And depending on the context, and it's interesting in Ireland, the culture. So you've mentioned a few times as well today about, we're running a bit late now and such, which is, I'm going to go over that as well, but in time. But it is about that as well. You need to take that into consideration when you have a group. We talked a lot about feel today. Now, it wasn't just about, I would call, proprioception. It was actually emotional. Emotional feel. That was a real, I really enjoyed that. That was, yeah. I achieved that. So when they achieve, when we achieve anything, it is quite a bit of a buzz. So she encouraged that as much as we can, because that's they'll come back and do it again. So we're actually empowering a motive on them to do again. Feedback, we talked about it a little bit this morning in terms of instruction. And the three things I got from it was basically, it's the person. They take the person first. And the other thing was about trying to create that real perception of our environment and what it can actually offer. And I'm going to finish with this last slide on a quote, I think. It's actually a guy called Charlie Brown, but not the one that we perceive with peanuts, right? But it's an American psychologist and basically it says, it's more than knowing what to do. It's actually knowing how to get it done. And that is more important. There's lots of ways of how to get it done, and today you've actually shown that. There's lots of adaptations. There's lots of ways we can actually get things done. What has to be done? Okay, we have to get around the course. We have to get through a spider's web. We have to do such and such. How we got it done had more value. We started to say, hold on, man. What do you think? Can we do that? Oh, I don't know. What about somebody else? And we talked about that, who was sitting in a chair, who was at a different level. So everybody was up there. Chairs were down there. They're on a totally different level in terms of voice, in terms of inclusion. And that to me really we came up. And I would say, last bit there is that the whole idea of today, and I think the way the message that I got on is basically the limitless potential. There's so much out you can actually do out there. Like, we've only had literally, an hour of practical activity. And in your field, and on all of your activities, and I'm a novice, totally in that, I'd say there is just so much potential out there that can actually change, challenge, and create. And for me, in terms of days or conferences or seminars or whatever, it's nice to be involved in the workshops that you do practically something and you can create some of the ideas that the theory behind it is actually being embedded into it. So I'm going to try and keep the time as much as I can and stop. Does anybody else want to have a comment? Because I think it's quite good for the people online to hear your views. I know you've got a few up on the wall, but does anybody want to make a comment on that?
I think the experiential nature was incredible in terms of, you know, we're all so used to teaching and teaching others how to do, and the fact that it was hands-on for us today, I certainly learned a huge amount in terms of we dealt with Frank in a wheelchair, and, you know, while we were putting him through the spider's web, I was dictating to him what to do. And it was only in the feedback afterwards, you know, I realised that I didn't give him any voice in his own action, you know. So there was huge learning through the experiential nature of the sessions. So thank you.
Anybody else? Yeah.
I suppose just to emphasise the strength and importance of role models, I'm kind of trying to deal with something at the moment which may be to involve someone to become an instructor teaching climbing who's not your classic climber, to try and enable them to become qualified, not just get a standalone award for in their wall, but actually get a recognised award and be able to operate and be a role model for all people, not just people maybe disabled in the same way, if you like, but something that's kind of there to see, to inspire. I think the power of role models is so massive across the board. So that would be something I'd be pushing for.
I think it's important to emphasize that what we understand now is we cannot dictate the solutions. So there's not a certain way to do things. So I think people feel comfortable with the fact that we don't know it all, and we are just constructing the knowledge as we speak. So because I believe many of the instructors feel they have to know it all, and we don't. The field of APA is just developing now, so that's perfectly fine. And with things like this, we all build it together. Just a final comment about the self-determination thing. It's very important that people have the choice to do things, but as Lauren was saying this morning, how do we give people the enough experience to be able to choose? Because many people with disabilities think they cannot do anything. So what do we do when somebody tells us we don't really want to try? You know, I do believe we need to push it a little bit, just because yes, you need to try, and then you decide. Just give me that, you know, just do that, because people would probably say, I don't want to do it, and we just leave it there. I don't think it's good enough, but thank you.
Anybody else? Jacob?
Just to say that even for us as instructors ourselves, that, you know, we were learning from me as well. It wasn't that, you know, we had the whole answers, but for us as instructors with mixed ability groups coming in, that we do need to have a broad toolbox of everything that we can dip in and go, oh, well, maybe that might work here or this might work here, and not get stuck in like what you've said up there, that, oh, it always worked and that's the way we did it. That you really need to be changing all the time. That's just, you know, the famous word of being adaptable, but, you know, to keep the challenge for the client as well, but even to keep yourself motivated as well. I think that your toolbox just has to get bigger and bigger for, you know, and things like this. You know, not only did I learn stuff from people that came to me, you know, hopefully that we pass something on to you as well. So that was.
Anybody else?
This is actually a little bit longer than it's a whole nother workshop in itself. But we run programs for people with disabilities. But like what Maina was saying is that when people want to go out and do an inclusive program, we want them to modify it for the people with disabilities. In our research, we found it's not just a barrier. It's multiple levels of barriers, and once you get over transportation, and you get over cost, and you get over time, and you get over attitudes, there's so many other barriers that people have to face when they do inclusive programs. And so sometimes I have a lot of friends, even people who I think are leaders and role models, that, you know what, it's so exhausting to have to fight and advocate for yourself all the time. And once you overcome the barriers you thought were in the way, and you run into another barrier, it just can be so frustrating, and to live your life like that. You know, like if you're deaf and you always have to, every single thing you do, you have to make sure there's an interpreter, and who's going to pay for that? And where are they going to get that person? How are they going to be there the whole time? I mean, it can be so exhausting, and I think that that the work that we're doing is really helping to overcome some of those layers, but we have to realize that there are more layers to those barriers that we have to help overcome. So it's a whole other conference, but.
I suppose just in with the last two contributors there, that when people don't maybe want to try an activity, and you know that you have to motivate them to do it because you have to get that first kid to do it, and maybe they'll be the role model for first years coming in, then they'll see that that's being done. So it might be like a little bit of tricking, kind of like just put the harness on, just, you know, just try it up. I'm not going to make you go to the wall, you know, and once they get into that position, you have a better chance that they will take that next step, or maybe the next time they come to the centre they'll do the next step. But it's things like the transportation then and all those barriers that I find at school as well. You know, I'm not going to be able to organise a special bus to come along behind the main bus with the other however many kids. And I would say to the kids beforehand, like in a social story type way, you know, do you mind if you're helped onto the bus, if you're lifted onto the bus, will you take that help? Because otherwise we're not going to get anywhere. And I find that fairly successful, that after they do that plenty of times, it doesn't become an issue anymore. So we're over that barrier wherever we're going to go. But that whole thing of saying, will you take the help, kind of gets you across that.
All right, thanks for that. That was great. I suppose that two last points for me is, one is that, yes, we have, thanks to the dose of reality of giving us all our barriers back there, Lauren. But I want to, and that, but I see them. I don't actually see them as barriers. I just see them as hurdles. You know, and we'll always get over the hurdle. But the more we put up, it just takes a bit longer. And so therefore, yes, there will always be that. But there'll always be that in everything that we do. So it's never it's per se in that sense. And so my last comment was that in one of the activities we did today, and Paul actually wasn't at the opening ceremony in Beijing, were you? And yeah, because poor Paul in the Paralympics had to go away from Beijing, and he was down in the sailing village. And on the opening ceremony, we had a quadriplegic use the pulley to go up the flagpole to put the Chinese flag up. And it was probably the most sensational, you know, just come up in the chair, they give him the pulley, and then off he went. And we were sitting there going, Jesus. You know, anybody can achieve anything in terms of their potential. And you suddenly think of them going, oh, look at me, you know, I've got all these stuff on me. Really, you really saw the difference. And I had to share that with you because I knew you missed it. I knew you left the closing ceremony. No, no, I don't actually really ought to hear that one. But thanks again for all your participants and all your comments, because I think the last bit is that it's a learning experience for all of us. And we can improve our own practice.
And something that's always struck me is that, you know, people with physical or learning difficulties are huge role models for children that have what we consider the normal abilities, you know, and I think it's very important to look at it from that perspective also. Thanks.
Sure.
Hello everybody, I just joined in the last session, but I feel I just want to add something because the positiveness that's in the room is electrifying, you know, in terms of the energy. But just Alan, what you've posted up there, what if your potential is limitless? What I would think about that is it's the potential of the participants is limitless, but the potential of the practitioners is equally limitless in terms of what we can do. And when I think about inclusion, we're talking a lot about how do we adapt if we're approached with needing to engage with somebody who has a disability. True inclusion is we ask ourselves that question, whether that person has a disability or not. So how are we adapting to engage with anybody, whether they have or they have not got a disability, because equally we have to adapt there. That's what I would say is true inclusion, not just to stop and think when it's somebody who has a disability. That's all I wanted to add. It's just, it's so positive in the room. Thanks.
So thanks very much to Alan for bringing it, I suppose, bringing our day together and for eliciting those comments. I was particularly delighted to hear your comment about values. It's certainly part of my ethos that so much of the roots of outdoor education are about values, and I know our students on the BA in Outdoor Learning, we've been looking recently at values around environmental education and the work of Schwartz, and Schwartz has done a lot of stuff and is actually published on physical education and values as well, and I'd strongly encourage people to look at that work. We're at the end of our day. I'd love to say that everyone now will leave the room knowing absolutely everything there is to know about adapting adventure sports, but I know that's not the case. But hopefully we'll have sowed the seed of the potential that can be there, and thank everybody for the contributions they've made. I'd like to particularly thank the students on the BA in Outdoor Learning. We're extremely proud of them. And as they pointed out to me on the first day they came into the college, we've 200 years of teaching experience between us, so just to let you know now before you start telling us anything. But you know, that certainly has come forward and come out in the sessions they've run today, so a big thanks to them. I'd like to thank Aileen, who's our head of department, and Seamus O'Shea, our head of school, who are immensely supportive of our programme. And when myself and Dave come up with these wacky ideas to let's get 60 people in a room from all over the country, and then let's get lots of people in from online. And if you've been hearing a crunching in the last while, it's probably Sean Healy in Virginia, who's just got up to have his breakfast, and it's his cornflakes that he's crunching there. You know, they've been immensely supportive in helping us to run this, and to run this because you have to remember, this is a teaching day, this is a learning day for our guys on the BA in Outdoor Learning. This is a college day just as much as anyone who was going to the swimming pool today or the AstroTurf or going into a lecture hall. I suppose the extent of that support, again, that we've had is in terms of the IT guys here in the college, between Chris and Liam and Jim as well, like really to be able to stream the work that you guys have been doing here today online, and also that when you go on, you see the YouTube channel here, Outdoor Learning, which the library staff have set up for us here. So you can go to that afterwards, you can share those links, you can download the whole thing from today. And if you put it in your favorites, you know, more content we'll put up and you'll be able to access it from there. I'd also like to thank the Cara Centre, who've been very helpful to us in supplying us with resources and help. And Kate is here from the Cara Centre, and she's actually brought along some leaflets about the Disability Inclusion Training Programme, which they're rolling out nationwide around the country. And we've two of the DIT trainers here in the room as well, people who actually deliver that programme. So if anybody's interested in those, please maybe you can approach Kate, or you can take one of the leaflets here. I suppose to thank Dave, because he had the challenging job of trying to be the moderator for the webinar and try and keep everybody who's not in the room up to date on what was going on. And I suppose lastly to thank Lauren and Alan for contributing so much to today. It's really been great. So thank you all, everybody. I would like to get a little bit more work out of you before we finish, okay? So I know some people, I mentioned at the start that Coaching Ireland and CARA, the National Adapted Physical Activity Centre, are working together with people interested in adventure sports in Ireland to look at how we can spread that message of inclusion through a framework that will work in clubs, through coaching programs, and in the community. So Kate, I think, is it U306? So basically up at the top of the building, they're going for a meeting straight after this. And everybody here has a voice there, and everybody is invited to go to that. The work that Coaching Ireland and CARA are doing in that is it's groundbreaking, because it's not something that has been the norm in adventure sports training in Ireland. The last piece of work I would ask from you is, because you have to remember, these students who've been contributing today, they're also young researchers and working on their own degrees. So we've been trying to gather some information. You filled in a questionnaire about attitudes at the start. If you were to fill them in at the end of the day, having maybe had some motivation, maybe captured some ideas, we'd be interested to know if they'd made any changes to your ideas. So if you want to take a blue one or a green one and pop them in the box at the end, then that would be really good. And also, as general feedback, you know, we try and run two seminars every semester. If there's something we can do to make these seminars better, or if there's an idea that you think, you know, you guys should really run a seminar on X, maybe give us some feedback here, and we'd be delighted to try and act on that. So there you go. So Dave, are we done? Oh, thank you very much. Yeah. This program wouldn't be on today except for our students on the BA in Outdoor Learning. And I mentioned it at the start of the day. It's an exciting program. It's a blended learning program where people can gain their degree while still fully involved in either a community organisation or working. And so there's information packs on that for any of you who'd be interested in that, or any of your colleagues at work. As I say, the people who are on our program are fantastic practitioners, and this program is to try and underpin their practice with an educational degree. So those blue folders are here if anyone would like to take them. The next offering of that program is on in September 2015, and so applications are open now. And there's what's called a recognition of prior learning process, which people would need to go through, which people would want to engage with in the spring. So there you go. Kate.
Sorry, the room for the interviews is actually just next door here. It's on the top.
Oh, great. Okay, so there you go. So you won't have to travel so far. The last thing is, I know some people are here as part of their work practice, or maybe some students, and so you can have a certificate of attendance if you wish. And Duncan, if he wants to wave his arm there for a second, has those here. So if anyone would need or like to have one of those certificates of attendance, if you come and talk to Duncan, he'll sort you out with that at the end of the session now. Have I remembered everything? Okay, so your number was, when you fill in your questionnaire again, if you put your number on it, we can tie it with your previous one. You don't have to, though. As I said, there's no Hyundai car. So, but as I say to you folks, I hope you've gained something from the day. If you want to give something back to the day, if you could fill in those, it would really help our students with their research. Okay, thank you very much.
I've got to go fly up to Dublin and get a flight.
Not at all.
Thank you very much indeed.